Hello, I'm Dr. Anna Lee, a radiation oncologist at MD Anderson Cancer Center and a member of the New Practitioner Committee of ACRO, and the guest host of today's ACRO podcast. As part of our new series called How I Built This Protocol, we will be exploring the stories behind some of the most interesting clinical trials in our field. Today, we are so excited to have Dr. Nancy Lee, who is Vice Chair of the Department of Radiation Oncology at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, Director of Proton Therapy, among many other titles. On a personal level, Dr. Nancy Lee is also my mentor and someone who has had great influence in my development as a head and neck radiation oncologist. She has led many trials, but one that has generated a lot of discussion is her current protocol, de-escalating radiation dose to total 30 gray using functional imaging for HPV positive related squamous cell carcinoma of the oropharynx. Nancy, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you, Anna, and really glad to be here and so excited to give an overview of this exciting protocol for HPV-driven cancer.
So for those who may not know, can you give a brief overview of the 30 gray trial?
Sure, Anna. So as you know, HPV-driven cancer have an excellent prognosis. So the idea here is, in addition to our traditional T and N staging system, or, in terms of, in addition to smoking status of a patient with HPV-driven cancer, I wanted to have an additional biomarker that can give us something about the radiosensitivity of the disease. So the idea here is we use hypoxia imaging done by 18-fluorine fluoromyisonidazole PET scan. It's a tracer just like FDG, except it's F-myso imaging hypoxia. And then coupled with the PET scan, we can image the hypoxia status. And so when we go through treatment with chemoradiation, when tumors are dying off, you can see the location of the hypoxic cells that where they were not seeing oxygen and now are seeing oxygen. It really denotes a radiosensitive nature of the disease. So that's really the overview. Patients that have response early in the treatment, meaning the cells are dying, which gives more oxygen to the hypoxic region. Those patients with the hypoxia resolution will then have a de-escalated approach to only 30 gray with chemotherapy.
Okay, great. So patients who are then hypoxia negative are eligible to receive 30 gray.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So how did you initially come up with this idea?
And initially, that's a great question, Anna. I was thinking about this early 2010, 2011, and I know that patients that I treated, excellent prognosis. They have both the acute toxicity, but more importantly, I'm starting to see some of the late toxic effect, such as dry mouth that's permanent, even though IMRT did a good job compared to 2D era, but patients are still left with dry mouth, and patients have a major complication I think is underreported, which is osteoradionecrosis, dental caries. And I think when I was thinking about that, what can we do? And that's when I thought about HPV-driven anal cancer, where only 30 gray with chemotherapy is needed to cure 95% of the tumor. So biology always trumps the disease location, and hence we took a leap of faith and understood the biology of the disease. Both are HPV-driven. Why not implement 30 gray in the head and neck region, which then you can imagine we're not going to see any of the late toxic effect.
Wow. So, so you're kind of using the principles in another disease site with, what you think is similar biology and applying it here.
Correct.
Okay. Did you have any, pushback or, people kind of challenging you, or any, any roadblocks along the way in getting this protocol up and running?
Yeah, great question. It is a dramatic drop from 70 gray, which we've been doing it for 3 decades, down to 30. That's a 66% reduction. And so our IRB was actually very progressive. they were able to allow me with the rationale open this protocol. The robot mainly was actually asking the surgeon to take out the primary tumor, but leave the lymph node behind for me to prove this concept. And you may ask, why did I do something like this where I only took out the primary tumor and not the lymph node? Why not just take, I mean, it's almost like we're treating 50% of the disease. And those are some of the roadblocks I encounter. And one of the reasons is, as you know, when you conduct a clinical trial, it is important to know, does it work? Does it not work? What is the mechanism of whether something works or not? Hypoxia imaging is really the phenotype of the tumor. We really want to know the genetic basis of why tumors respond to radiation or not. Given these HPV-driven tumors are very small in general, and then robotic surgery was really coming online around early 2010, 2011, that I needed to rope in our surgeons and then to have them also be a partner to help us also get some tissue. We can then understand the genetic basis, although we didn't require the patient to have a negative margin, which means it's not a major surgery. And then also, so with doing that, most of my robot is kind of crazy if you think about it. Take out half the tumor, leave the lymph node behind. So that would be one of the roadblocks. But thankfully, I had 3 surgeons that believed in me and the concept. And then that's why our initial pilot study only had 19 patients. And after that, now every one of our surgeons are on board. In fact, it's the most popular protocol at Sloan Kettering. Everyone thinks about 30 gray before we do any other trials, and we no longer require surgery. Patients just get treated definitively, both primary and the neck nodal mass.
Yeah, I think, I'm starting to, write my own protocol, and definitely learning that buy-in from the other disciplines is very important to be for the success of the protocol.
Exactly. Just like you said, we can sit down and write a protocol the protocol of our dream, but if no one puts the patient on your protocol, it won't happen.
Yeah.
So therefore, this is really, I learned this concept from our late Keon Ang, Dr. Ang from MD Anderson. Really, when you implement a protocol, got to think about who's going to help you enroll a protocol. You need to get buy-in from everyone. You may not get the entire team, right? All your surgeons, all your med-onc. You just have to have a couple partners who believe in your concept. Start with a pilot concept, and then it will roll out, with more data and then convincing proof to the rest of the team.
I think there's a lot of interest out in the community at other academic centers about implementing something like this. How soon do you think the F-MISO molecule will be more generally available so other institutions could utilize this approach?
Great question, Anna. It's interesting when you think about F-MISO, it's been around for 3 decades. We've imaged in human over thousands of patients worldwide, not just head and neck cancer, brain cancer, cervical cancer, lung cancer, rectal cancer, you name it. And it's a very important biomarker. Time after time, the paper shows that it's a very important predictive and prognostic marker, but somehow it has not gone through the proper way of getting FDA approval. It's just really a tracer. Just like FDG, any center with a cyclotron, you buy this commercial kit. It's on a cassette from GE. And then you literally just plug in the number with the specifications that Sloan Kettering is willing to provide and implement on your own cyclotron. And then you can, the F-MISO can be available for your patient. And we actually started piloting the 30-grade concept in our MSK Miami site as well as Hartford site. And we were already enrolled 5 patients from the center. So one of my goals is to make it commercially available for all centers, and therefore we can help more patients. And for doing that, I literally just wrote the expanded access protocol for the FDA. We met with the FDA once. There is interest, but as you know, getting FDA approval takes time. So I'm still working on that. Hopefully the new approach can help many centers what can gain approval, and the other centers can have access to the F-MISO tracer or molecule.
Yeah, that would be great. Can you give us a sense? I think this is probably the most, the question that everybody wants to know is, can you give us a sense of how patients are doing on the trial? What's the status of the trial? When do you expect to complete accrual and share results?
Yeah, great question, Anna. So since our publication of 19 patients in JNCI, that's our pilot concept, we've actually enrolled and treated more than 350 patients now. I am in the process to submit our first validated cohort of 158 patients. And I can tell you the results are excellent. The local region control is 95%. So excellent. It's really a precision radiotherapy pathway. So a patient comes in, instead of everyone gets 70 gray, one size fits all, we go through this pathway. If you're hypoxic negative image during treatment, you will get 30 gray. If you're hypoxic persistent or positive, you will remain 70 gray. So with this precision pathway, our 2-year local region controls 2 years is 95%. And our toxicity, you can imagine, is just really minimal. Now with that, that paper is going to be submitted this month, in fact. And then we finish our second cohort where we don't even require any surgery. Although I actually kind of, like I said earlier, I really want some tissue because we got to learn why a patient did not respond. And again, remember I said the surgery is not a major robotic surgery. It's just really a simple tonsillectomy. I don't care about the margin status. So it's really a big biopsy in my mind to get the tissue. But in the second cohort, we did not require. We finished another 153 out of 158 patients. 5 more patients are slotted for our Alliance site. I gave them 10 slots. MSK, we already finished that, our portion of this second cohort. And patients are doing very well, continue very robust data, very similar control rate as I stated for cohort A. And in fact, we're on our third and new protocol now, where we're just implementing treating the GTV only and sparing all subclinical region. So very exciting. We already enrolled another 30 plus patients. So one of the reasons why I wanted to get F-MISO FDA approved, because I have to keep writing protocols and then keep having the funds. And I'm hoping to get it to a point where everyone can implement at their center and help our patients. The data is very robust, and hopefully it'll be published this year.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. And I know you mentioned this before, but it seems like, other centers are now able to enroll a few patients, or you're allowing some slots. But, what are the next steps for this treatment paradigm in terms of, rolling it out in a cooperative group trial possibly, or, in a more broader sense?
Yes, great question, Anna. I did present, and that is the goal. First, I needed to test the pilot within MSKCC. So I figured Miami is far enough from New York, and Hartford, Connecticut is pretty far, a couple of hours. So we're piloting, and so far the workflow is really just seamless. And really thank you to our Miami MSK Alliance partners. And then I've already presented this concept to Energy Oncology, to Sue Young and Quinn Lee and all the steering committee. And one of the things we have to make sure when we implement in a larger cooperative setting is first the pilot concept that demonstrating it is feasible out of MSKCC. And second, we need to have standardization of how we read F-MISO scan, which our nuclear medicine doctors did do this project and was presented at ASCO this last year, where nuclear medicine doctors blinded to the result of the F-MISO PET and has some training by the expert Heiko Schroeder. And we have 5 different nuclear medicine doctors with varying training. Some people were just fresh graduate out of nuclear medicine fellowship. Some other have longer years of training, like 10 years plus, or even in practice. And out of that, we had a kappa of around 0.9, meaning that there is concordance of the reading. So very encouraging data. That piece is important when we roll out to cooperative setting. Again, as you know, energy oncology, we want central review. We're going to do all that process. So very exciting. That's something I'm working toward. And hopefully once I iron out the cost issue, which is why I needed to do the expanded access for the FDA, dropping the cost down, then we can really implement in the cooperative setting. And then the goal is really a randomized study, right? One is the standard care, whatever that is, would it be 60 gray, 70 gray, what chemo, whatever that is, versus this kind of precision radiation pathway where the patients have a chance to get de-escalated therapy. In general, among the HPV positive tumor that enrolled the study, about 80 to 85% of patients are eligible to be de-escalated to 30 gray, and they are the ones that are hypoxic negative. So not everyone should be de-escalating in my mind. It really speaks of the biology. And right now, our effort is really looking at the genetic basis. This is being done by Dr. Nadine Diaz and his team.
Yeah, I think that what you said, the last part is important because, there's a sense that, is HPV or pharyngeal cancer in your New York setting, is it different than what we're seeing down here in Texas or potentially Miami? So I think that this precision pathway will allow us to better understand the disease process. So final question, what advice do you wish someone had told you regarding protocol development and bringing a trial to fruition?
So advice, well, it's got a lot of advice, and I wrote many protocols throughout my career. And I think the key, again, we said earlier, get your buy-in. Don't write the full protocol before having your teams in place, because you will have wasted a lot of effort. And then make sure your funding is in place, because if you don't have funds, you cannot implement the protocol that you put your sweat into putting together, right? So funds, as well as team player and other people willing to participate in your protocol. And then I think something when you write, you want to have the right balance. You don't want to be so narrow with your inclusion criteria that you wind up excluding everyone that comes to your clinic and you can't enroll them because you wrote your inclusion criteria too tight. I ran into that problem. So look at your inclusion criteria and your exclusion criteria to make sure it's not so narrow that even though you got the funds, you got all the team to buy in, but you can't enroll a patient because you narrowed the scope. But yet you don't want to be so wide that everybody can enroll on a protocol, then you can't get your answer. That balance is important. Know your disease site really well, know your literature really well, so that you can strike that right balance. And maybe along the way, you may have to amend the protocol, given what you see once your protocol's open. And then be persistent. Don't give up easily. Continue hard work. Think in terms of your patients always, not about our career only. That's second to me. It's about our patients. How are you helping your patients? If you write a good protocol that helped your patients, then patients will come to you. That is what's happening to our 30 grade. We got people all over the world. I mean, in Europe, flying to US, and they want this implemented in Europe or South America. So write a good protocol. Think from a patient perspective. Think about your family member. What would they want to be on your protocol? Do you believe in the protocol? Do you believe you can really make a difference in their life? Once you have all that in place, then you can bring it to fruition to the end.
Wow, thank you, Nancy, so much. And I think that, these really key pieces of advice will be helpful for anyone, any young academician, anybody in academics who want to go into clinical trial development and protocol. I think it takes a long time. and a lot of support. So we really appreciate your time and for being a constant source of inspiration.
Thank you so much, Anna. Again, just advice to all the people. It's really rewarding if your concept changes standard of care, and be persistent, be patient, like Anna said. And maybe you have to write a couple protocols before you really get the one protocol that is perfect. But don't let how do I say it? Don't let anything stop you. And when I think from a patient perspective, I don't stop. I just keep going because that's my goal, to help them. So, and then I'm patient. So really, I hope that everyone, especially young minds out there, I think you guys are so much smarter than me. Go forward. Happy to, happy to have you email me. Anna knows I always respond. Text me. I'm willing to help. I'm busy, but I'm willing to help. And we can set up a time to help you if you're running into problems. Something I'm so willing. I think the younger generation is important to help us further advance medicine.
Yeah, well, we're so grateful to have mentors like you, Nancy. And we want to thank our listeners for your time today. If you're enjoying the content of the ACRO podcast, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also view the podcast on ACRO's YouTube channel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye.